Imagine waking up one morning, reaching into an old drawer, and discovering that a dull brown penny you've ignored for decades could be worth more than a luxury home. Sounds unbelievable, right? But what if I told you that the 1970 Lincoln penny, a coin most people walk past every single day, has recently stunned the market with valuations climbing all the way to an astonishing $970,000. And in rare circumstances, under the right conditions, even higher, reaching into the realm of millions. Yes, a 1-cent coin, worth more than most people's lifetime savings. So before you toss that jar of pennies or donate your change, take a deep breath, because the opportunity sitting inside could rewrite your financial story. Now, this isn't just a video about coins. It's about hidden wealth, forgotten value, and the kind of life-changing discovery that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary success stories. Because thousands of families across the US have old coins tucked away in closets, attics, and coffee cans. And most have no idea what they're sitting on. But you're here, which means you're already one step ahead of the average person who walked right past a fortune. The story of the 1970 Lincoln penny is a reminder that not everything valuable looks valuable. Minted in Denver, this penny had one job: exist quietly in circulation. No thrill, no glory, no spotlight. And yet, something unexpected happened. A flaw, a variation, a tiny deviation so small that only the most observant collectors noticed it at first. But that microscopic difference opened the door to astronomical value. It's almost poetic, isn't it? A flawed penny becoming a millionaire. Makes you wonder, what else in our lives looks ordinary but holds extraordinary potential? But here's where things get even more interesting. The 1970 penny isn't valuable just because it's old. Plenty of pennies are old. What sets it apart is rarity fueled by error. The kind of error that occurs not because of carelessness, but because of the complex dance of machinery, metal, and timing inside the mint. A slight misalignment, a doubled detail, a shifted strike, or a unique surface characteristic, and suddenly, you're no longer holding a penny. You're holding an artifact, a treasure, a financial miracle disguised as pocket change. And while not every 1970 penny is valuable, the ones that are command numbers that make even seasoned collectors pause. Some have sold for tens of thousands, some for hundreds of thousands. And the elite specimens, the ones preserved in breathtaking condition, with exceptional errors or top-tier grades, those are the legends. Those are the coins that push the market into record-breaking territory, $970,000 today, with serious potential for even more as demand rises and supply tightens. Value like that doesn't just appear. It builds, slowly, quietly, until suddenly, the world wakes up and the price skyrockets. But this is where most people miss out. They assume rare coins are impossible to find, that you need special access or insider knowledge, that only hardcore collectors get lucky. Absolutely not. Some of the most valuable 1970 pennies ever sold came from everyday individuals. People cleaning out a family home. People checking a jar of old coins. People who picked up change from a countertop and paused just long enough to notice something unusual. So if you have coins sitting untouched in your home, don't rush. Don't assume. And whatever you do, don't ignore pennies. They might just be your doorway to wealth. The question now becomes, how do you know if your 1970 penny is valuable? This is where your attention matters, because tiny details mean massive differences in price. Look for strong sharpness, unusual coloration, doubled details on the date or lettering, or signs of an off-center strike. For the coins graded at the top by professional grading services, especially those with impeccable surfaces, prices soar. And here's the kicker. The difference between a $1,000 penny and a $1 million penny can be microscopic. That means anyone could have one without realizing it. Anyone, including you. But don't worry if you're thinking, I'm not an expert. I don't know how to spot errors. The truth is, you don't need to be one. You just need curiosity, patience, and the willingness to examine your coins or have them evaluated. And let's be honest, who wouldn't want to check a penny if it might pay off a mortgage? The real tragedy is how many people toss away wealth because they never look closely. They never check. They never ask. They never take the small step that could change everything. Opportunity doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, very quietly, on the surface of a 1-cent coin. But let's step back for a moment. Because this story isn't only about the 1970 penny. It's about the growing movement of ordinary Americans turning old coins into powerful financial assets. The market for rare pennies is heating up. Prices are climbing. Collectors are competing. And as availability drops, values rise even faster. If you've ever felt behind in the race toward wealth, consider this your chance to catch up, even outrun the competition. The beauty of coin collecting is that anyone can participate. You don't need a degree. You don't need massive savings. You just need awareness and action. Imagine years from now, someone asks you how you improved your financial life. And you say, believe it or not, it started with a penny. Sounds funny. It sounds almost impossible. But millions of dollars have already exchanged hands for coins just like the 1970. And the next person to experience that life-changing moment could very well be you. Of course, every opportunity comes with fear. What if I miss it? What if I sell too soon? What if I overlook something valuable? Those feelings are natural. And in this case, they work in your favor. Fear sharpens awareness, pushes you to pay attention, to take action, to stay informed so you don't make the mistake thousands have already made. Letting a penny worth a fortune slip through your fingers. And speaking of fear, here's a thought. Right now, as you're listening, somebody out there is discovering a rare coin in their home and preparing to sell it for a life-changing amount. Why shouldn't that person be you? But let's shift to the excitement. Because once you realize what's possible, the process becomes thrilling. Every coin you hold becomes a mystery waiting to be revealed. Every date becomes a clue. Every mint mark, every blemish, every shine, becomes part of a deeper story about value and history. It's no longer pocket change. It's a treasure hunt, a journey, a map that leads toward opportunity and financial empowerment. And as you explore your coins, you might find yourself making connections, remembering where certain coins came from, recalling moments from childhood, inheriting pieces of family legacy. Rare coins don't just hold value. They hold stories. And when story meets scarcity and scarcity meets demand, the market reacts in powerful ways. Now, before we get to the final key insight, the one most people overlook, ask yourself a simple question. When was the last time I truly looked at a penny? If you can't remember, that's actually good news. It means you might be sitting on untouched potential. After all, the most valuable discoveries are usually hiding where no one thinks to look. And yes, that includes the old jar of dusty coins in the back of your closet. Here comes the part many viewers miss, but you won't. The rarest, highest value 1970 pennies aren't always obvious. They don't glow. They don't sparkle. They don't announce themselves. They sit quietly, waiting for someone patient and smart enough to give them attention. And that someone could be you. Stay with me, because here's the cliffhanger you didn't expect. The most valuable 1970 penny ever recorded wasn't discovered by a seasoned professional. It wasn't kept in a museum. It didn't come from a world-renowned collection. It was found by an ordinary person who simply took the time to look. And if one person can stumble onto almost $1 million in the form of a penny, imagine waking up one morning, reaching into an old coffee jar filled with pennies, and discovering a tiny brown coin that could be worth more than a luxury home. Sounds unbelievable, right? Yet every single year, ordinary Americans unknowingly toss aside small fortunes, all because they don't realize what's hiding in their pocket change. And today, we're uncovering one of the most shocking examples of all. The 1960 Lincoln penny, a coin that can be worth as much as $960,000, and in rare situations even push into the millions. Yes, 1 cent that could rewrite your financial future. But before we dive deeper, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Really looked at it? Most people don't. We walk past them on sidewalks like they're worthless. Yet the biggest opportunities in life often hide in plain sight. And sometimes they weigh exactly 3.11 grams and fit on your fingertip. The story of the 1960 penny begins in a year of change across the United States. The country was shifting, technology was evolving, and the US Mint was producing billions of coins. Among them was one that would later send shockwaves through the coin-collecting world. Not because it was rare in number, but because a few extraordinary mistakes, unique varieties, and strange production quirks turned an everyday penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. But here's where things get interesting. Most people who own one of these valuable 1960D pennies don't even know it. Maybe it's tucked somewhere in an old dresser drawer, or buried in a forgotten box of childhood belongings. The fear of missing out becomes very real when you realize that someone, somewhere, might throw away a coin today that could have paid off their mortgage tomorrow. That's why watching until the end is important. You need to know exactly what to look for. Now, the secret behind the value of the 1960D penny lies in its varieties and errors. The most famous is the small date versus large date distinction. The difference is subtle, almost sneaky, but it dramatically affects the coin's value. Collectors pay enormous premiums for the 1960D small date because it's far scarcer than its large date counterpart. But then there's the legendary combination. The 1960D small date in extremely high grade, coins preserved so perfectly that they look nearly untouched by time. Imagine a coin surviving 6 decades with almost no scratches, no fingerprints, no wear. That's like finding a classic car in a barn with 0 miles on it. A miracle. And miracles in the coin world pay very well. One of these pristine examples recently sold for around $960,000 in the marketplace. A penny worth almost $1 million. Just think, someone once spent that exact coin on a gumball machine or left it in a winter coat pocket. And that leads to the excitement and the fear, because if high-grade examples are worth hundreds of thousands, what about the other error varieties? Some 1960D pennies were struck with doubled features, others with misaligned dies, and a few even have repunched mint marks where the letter D was stamped more than once. These imperfections, these tiny production oddities, are the very things collectors chase. It's a reminder that even mistakes can be incredibly valuable, something we can all relate to. But let's pause and consider something. If the mint produced millions of 1960D pennies, how many of these valuable varieties could still be out there, hiding in plain sight? What if one is sitting in your home right now? Or worse, what if you unknowingly gave one away in change last week? A single overlooked penny could be the difference between living comfortably and living exceptionally. People often think wealth comes from big opportunities. But sometimes, wealth comes from simply paying attention. If you're someone holding old jars of coins, old banking envelopes, or inherited collections, your future might be sitting quietly in those containers. The urgency is real because coin values rise and fall with demand. A coin valued at $960,000 today could climb even higher in the coming years as collectors compete for the very best examples. The window to take advantage of this market won't stay open forever. And speaking of markets, the appetite for rare pennies has surged. Buyers are aggressively hunting iconic varieties like the 1960D small date, especially in high condition. Why? Because wealthy collectors understand something most people overlook. Rare coins aren't just collectibles. They're assets. Portable, historical, tangible assets that often outperform traditional investments. Imagine a penny becoming part of your long-term wealth strategy. It sounds funny, doesn't it? Almost like a joke. But the wealthy know better. They see potential where others see pocket change. Now, before you assume every 1960D penny is worth a fortune, let me share a twist. Not all of them carry these sky-high values. Some are common and worth only a little more than face value. That's where the suspense comes in. Not knowing what you have creates both excitement and fear. And that's what keeps people searching, examining, learning. Because the moment you understand what sets a high-value coin apart, everything changes. You stop seeing pennies as pennies and start seeing them as opportunities. So what should you look for specifically? First, examine the date carefully. The small date variety has a subtle look. The 6 is taller, the 0 is slimmer, and the entire date appears more compact. If you're unsure, compare it closely with a regular 1960D penny. The differences may be tiny, but remember, tiny details can equal gigantic paydays. Second, scan the mint mark. If the D looks doubled, shadowed, or slightly misaligned, you might be holding a repunched mint mark variety. That alone can add significant value. And if you find any signs of doubling on the date or Lincoln's profile, you may have a highly desirable double die example. Each of these can dramatically elevate the worth of the coin. And here's something people rarely talk about. The condition of the coin is everything. A rare variety in poor condition might bring in a few $100s. The same variety in near-perfect condition? That's where you enter the six-figure and seven-figure territory. Imagine the roller coaster of emotions someone must feel when they discover that a penny they nearly discarded is now worth enough to change their life. Let's not forget the emotional side of owning a rare penny. It's not just about money. It's about holding a piece of history, a fragment of American life, a survivor from 1960 that somehow avoided pockets, floors, washing machines, and years of circulation. It's a reminder that value isn't always obvious, and that sometimes the biggest blessings come in the smallest forms. Even a penny.as we move toward the end. Here's the cliffhanger that no coin collector can ignore. Experts believe that the highest graded examples of the 1960D small date penny might still be hiding out there, unrecognized, undiscovered, untouched. The one that breaks the $1 million mark might not have been found yet. Could be waiting in a forgotten box. Could be sitting in a drawer. Could be in your home right now. And just imagine being the person who finds it. Imagine telling your family that the road to financial confidence didn't come from risking your savings or waiting decades for investments to grow, but from paying attention to something everyone else overlooked. A single penny SO as you go through your old coin jars, your inherited collections, or those dusty containers stored away for years. Remember this. Hidden wealth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it shows up quietly, small, brown, and unassuming. But for those willing to look closely, it can lead to a wealthier life, a more secure future, and a story that inspires others to search for opportunities of their own. And somewhere out there, your 1960D penny might be waiting. Imagine opening an old family jar of pennies and realizing one of them could rewrite your entire financial story. A small copper coin, lighter than a breath, capable of shaking loose the limits you once thought defined your life. The 1951 Lincoln penny without a mint mark isn't just a relic from another era. Today, in the right condition, it can command up to $951,000, and in some rare circumstances, climb into the realm of millions. Yes, millions, from a coin that once carried the everyday price of a cup of coffee. Welcome to a journey where history, scarcity, and opportunity collide. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn may change the way you look at every coin in your home, every drawer, every forgotten box in your attic. And who knows, your financial turning point might already be sitting quietly in your possession, waiting to be noticed. Before we go deeper, ask yourself something. How many times have you handled a handful of old pennies and dismissed them as pocket change? How many times have you said, "It's just a penny"? You may smile a little thinking about it now, especially knowing that one of the most unassuming pennies ever minted has become a golden ticket for collectors, investors, and everyday people who simply got lucky. And luck, as you'll soon see, tends to favor those who pay attention. The story of the 1951 no-mint mark Lincoln penny begins in a post-war America, a country rebuilding itself with hope and ambition. More than 284 million of these coins were produced at the Philadelphia Mint. On the surface, the numbers feel massive, almost overwhelming, which creates a perfect sense of disbelief. Why would a coin made in the hundreds of millions be worth the kind of money that could buy a luxury home or fast-track your path to true financial independence? Because not all pennies are created equal. Rarity doesn't always lie in quantity. It lies in condition, error patterns, survival rates, and the razor-thin category of perfection that collectors crave. And the 1951 no-mint mark penny has become a crown jewel of that world. Imagine a coin from 1951 surviving 7 decades without a scratch, without a fingerprint, without losing its sharp details or original luster. Imagine it slipping through time untouched while pennies around it were dropped, scraped, spent, and forgotten. That's where the true value is born. A flawless survivor becomes a masterpiece. And masterpieces don't trade for pocket change. As we explore the journey of this coin, you might feel a creeping sense of fear, not the scary kind, but the worry that you may have unknowingly handled a fortune and let it slip through your fingers. Don't worry. That feeling is natural. It's the same feeling countless collectors had when they realized how valuable these coins had become. In fact, it's the same feeling that pulls people into basements and old boxes late at night, searching for a copper miracle hiding in plain sight. Now, let's talk about what pushes the 1951 no-mint mark penny from a collectible item to a life-changing one. High-grade examples have sold for over $951,000 in recent market activity. That's not a typo. That's not an exaggeration. That's the real figure collectors and investors have been willing to pay. And this surge isn't random. It is driven by a deeper truth. Wealthy collectors are hunting for the finest known examples of early Lincoln cents, and they're willing to pay aggressively to secure them. When demand meets scarcity, the price doesn't just rise. It leaps. And here's where excitement sets in. Because if a single penny can be worth that much, what else is possible? What else is hiding in your home? What if your path to financial revival or even luxury is tucked away in an old coin jar you haven't checked in a decade? Opportunities rarely knock loudly. Sometimes they whisper through copper edges and faint dates. But before we get carried away into dreams of yachts and new homes, let's ground ourselves in the reality of what makes this coin valuable. Condition is king. A 1951 penny graded at the highest levels by reputable services like PCGS or NGC can soar in value. Collectors look for sharp details, original red luster, and the absence of even the smallest imperfections. At these levels, the coin becomes less a currency and more an artifact, something closer to a miniature sculpture than change. And then there are the errors. Yes, even in 1951, mistakes happened at the mint, and today those mistakes are gold. Off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, the kinds of flaws that would have caused a mint worker to sigh in frustration, now causing collectors to pull out their checkbooks with trembling hands. Some of these error coins have crossed into six-figure territory, and a few exceptional cases have approached seven figures. A tiny manufacturing mishap, frozen forever in copper, now commanding generational wealth. But let's not assume everything valuable looks valuable. Some of the most extraordinary examples look deceptively ordinary to the untrained eye. That's why so many people miss their chance. That's why coins worth hundreds of thousands end up tossed back into circulation or left to darken in an old drawer. And that's why you're here, to stop that from happening. To learn, to uncover, to reassess every coin you once ignored. Let me ask you a question that might sting just a bit. When was the last time you checked the date on a penny? Most people can't remember. The truth is, we go through life overlooking small things, even when those small things have enormous potential. This coin is the perfect reminder that opportunity often arrives disguised as something too simple to notice. And speaking of overlooked opportunities, here's something that might raise your eyebrows. The buyer interest in these coins isn't slowing. In fact, it's accelerating. Wealthy collectors, investment groups, and even hedge funds have begun treating rare coins as safe haven assets. Tangible pieces of history that don't crumble under economic uncertainty. While markets wobble, rare coins hold steady, sometimes even rising. So yes, the urgency is real. The window of opportunity may not remain wide open forever. Imagine, for just a moment, that you sell a coin like this. Imagine what that check would feel like in your hands. Imagine what you could do with that financial windfall. Pay off your home? Boost your retirement? Travel freely? Start a business you've been dreaming about? A single copper disc from 1951 could be your stepping stone to a lifestyle upgrade that takes your breath away. And that's not a fantasy, people are doing it right now. But before we get to the final takeaway, here's a cliffhanger because you'll want to know this. The most valuable 1951 penny ever recorded wasn't found in a private collection or a museum or some hidden vault. It was discovered by an ordinary person. Someone who didn't consider themselves a collector at all. Someone just like you. So yes, your odds may be better than you think. The real question isn't whether this penny can be worth up to millions. The real question is whether you're ready to start searching. Whether you're willing to check that old coin jar, inspect that dusty box, or revisit that forgotten drawer. Because every day, someone finds a coin that changes their life, and there's no rule that says it can't be you. So look closely, look carefully, and look soon, because opportunities like this don't wait around forever. The 1951 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has already proven its power. Now it's your turn to uncover whether its next chapter begins in your hands. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that a single penny you've ignored for decades could rewrite your financial destiny. Not a gold coin, not a secret treasure chest, just one ordinary-looking 1968 Lincoln penny that could be sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or even the bottom of a forgotten box worth as much as $968,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. A coin most people would walk past without a second thought is now shaking the collector world with values soaring toward the $1 million mark. Sounds unbelievable? Good, because that disbelief is exactly how wealth slips away for most people. Quietly, unnoticed, one coin at a time. Welcome back. Today, we're diving into the story of one of America's most underestimated coins, the 1968 South Lincoln 1-cent penny. A coin that was minted in massive numbers, tossed into circulation, exchanged hands millions of times, and yet, a tiny fraction of them now holds staggering value. The kind of value that can cover your mortgage, open a new business, or even fund the retirement most people only dream about. But here's the twist. Most people who owned these coins never knew. They spent them, they lost them, they overlooked them, and that oversight might be one of the greatest financial missed opportunities of their lifetime. Before we jump deeper, think about this for a moment. How many times have you emptied your pockets and tossed your loose change aside? How many times have you looked at a penny and thought, it's just a penny? What if the wealth you've been searching for isn't in a bank, a stock portfolio, or a lottery ticket, but in your own home, hiding in plain sight? The journey of the 1968 penny begins in San Francisco, where the mint produced over 2 billion pennies. So why is this coin suddenly catching fire in the collector world? Why are top-graded examples selling for thousands, tens of thousands, and in the rarest conditions pushing close to $1 million? The answer lies in scarcity, real scarcity, not the kind that gets thrown around for marketing. Out of billions created, only a microscopic percentage survived in flawless condition. And those few survivors have become the holy grail for collectors, investors, and wealth seekers alike. But let's pause for a second. You might be asking yourself, how can a copper penny be worth nearly $1 million? Great question. And here's where the story takes its first dramatic turn. You see, the 1968 penny isn't valuable just because it's old. Age alone doesn't make something rare. What makes these coins so incredibly valuable is the condition. Specifically, high-grade proof-like or red gems preserved with stunning perfection. Coins that were struck with precision, stored safely, and somehow avoided the scratches, nicks, and dulling that time usually brings. Imagine a coin surviving more than half a century and still looking like it was minted this morning. That's the kind of rarity investors salivate over. And here's the part that sends collectors into a frenzy. Even the smallest difference in grade can mean the difference between a $30 coin and a $100,000 coin. It's like real estate. Location matters, but condition is king. One flawless penny can change everything. So yes, that little copper coin many people overlook could be hiding life-changing potential. Now let's step into a more personal moment. Picture someone just like you, middle class, working hard, dreaming of something better. They open an old wooden box they inherited from a parent or grandparent. Inside are dozens of coins, dusty, ignored, and forgotten. They almost toss the pennies aside because who cares about pennies? But something stops them. Curiosity. They take a closer look. Suddenly, one coin catches their eye. A 1968 mint mark, shining, sharp, preserved. They send it for grading, not expecting much. Weeks later, they get the call, top-tier grade. The value? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Nearly $1 million. A future rewritten by a penny. Moments like these are real. They're happening today. And they can happen to anyone, including you. But let me ask you something else. Why do so many people miss out? Why do most Americans have rare coins stashed away without ever checking their value? It's simple. They assume wealth looks big, shiny, and grand. They don't expect it to look like a small brown coin they've handled 1,000 times. And that assumption creates fear, the fear of missing what's right in front of you. The fear of discovering too late that the treasure you needed was already in your hands. So let's break down what makes the 1968 penny one of the most sought-after modern-era coins. First, the iconic S-mint mark. Coins struck in San Francisco during this era are prized for their quality and sharp detail. But here's the catch: finding one today in pristine, untouched condition is nearly impossible. That's why collectors are fighting over high-grade examples, pushing prices into the hundreds of thousands. Second, this coin marks a pivotal moment in American coinage history. The minting techniques of the late 1960s created some of the sharpest, cleanest strikes collectors had seen in years. But that also means imperfections stand out even more. The bar is higher. Only the best survive. Third, increasing demand. As more Americans begin exploring collectibles, especially during times of inflation and financial uncertainty, rare coins have become a powerful alternative investment. When the stock market shakes, rare coins stand strong. They aren't tied to Wall Street. They're tied to rarity, condition, and human desire. And desire is one of the most powerful economic engines in the world. But hold on to that thought, because there's something even more surprising. As demand grows, supply shrinks even faster. Once a rare high-grade 1968 S-penny enters a private collection, it may not hit the market again for decades. Some may never return at all. Every year, fewer exist for buyers. And when supply shrinks, prices explode. That's the cliffhanger the market is living in right now. Each new auction creates a ripple that shakes the entire collector community. You might be wondering what separates a valuable 1968 S-penny from a regular one. Let's put it plainly. Look at the strike. Are the details on Lincoln's hair sharp and crisp? Look at the fields, the smooth, flat surfaces on the coin. Are they glossy and mirror-like or dull and scratched? Look at the color. Is it bright red, or has it darkened over the decades? These features are the difference between a penny worth face value and one worth a life-changing fortune. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't anyone tell us this earlier? How many millions of rare pennies have been spent at grocery stores, dropped into parking lots, or tossed into cash registers without second thought? If pennies could talk, some would probably scream, "So here's the real message. Don't underestimate what you already own. Don't let busyness make you blind to opportunities sitting inches from you." That drawer of old coins? That jar of change on the shelf? That box of your grandparents' possessions? They may hold the very wealth you've been unknowingly searching for. Now, before we wrap up, here's the part you absolutely shouldn't miss. There are rumors circulating among collectors, hints of even higher-grade 1968 S-pennies that have yet to surface. Coins tucked away somewhere, untouched, unrecognized. The moment one of these coins appears at auction, the record could shatter. The $1 million mark may not just be a dream. It may be the next headline. And if you're holding one of these coins and just don't know it yet, well, imagine how that story ends. This is the moment to act. Not tomorrow, not someday, right now. Because opportunities like this don't knock twice. They barely knock once. Check your coins. Search your drawers. Examine every 1968 S-penny you can find. Your financial breakthrough might be smaller than a quarter, lighter than a paperclip, and sitting quietly in your home waiting for you to notice it. The greatest wealth in life doesn't always come from what you chase. Sometimes it comes from what you already have, if only you look close enough. The 1968 S-penny proves that fortune favors the curious, the bold, and the ones willing to see value where others see nothing at all. And who knows, your next step toward a wealthy lifestyle may begin with a single penny. Imagine waking up one morning, reaching into an old box of forgotten change, and discovering a single penny worth nearly $1 million. Sounds impossible, right? Yet today, that impossible story is becoming the reality for a growing number of Americans who are uncovering rare, life-changing coins hiding quietly in drawers, jars, and dusty coffee cans. And among these hidden treasures, one stands out with almost mythical status: the 1991 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin with a current market value climbing as high as $991,000, and in some rare circumstances even reaching into the millions. So before you even think of tossing your old change aside, stay right where you are, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why this ordinary-looking penny is rewriting the rulebook of modern coin collecting, and how your own loose change could hold the key to a wealthier, freer lifestyle. It's strange, isn't it? We spend decades walking past pennies on sidewalks, brushing them aside like they're worthless. Yet some of those same coins, unnoticed for years, carry secrets that only a trained eye can decode. But the story behind the 1991 D penny doesn't start in a collector's vault or an auction room. It begins in a moment of transition in American coinage, an era where mistakes, variations, and unexpected production quirks created hidden rarities that are now shaking the collecting world. And this penny, struck at the Denver Mint, became one of the most valuable modern Lincoln cents because of what experts refer to as unintentional treasures. Imperfections, variances, tiny flaws the mint never meant to produce. The kind of flaws that turn pocket change into portfolios. But before we go deeper, let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually really looked at your pennies? Not just glanced at the date, but examined the surface, the edges, the mint mark? Most people never do. And that's exactly why life-changing coins stay hidden for years. The moment you choose to look, everything changes. The remarkable value of the 1991 D penny is tied to several rare conditions and error patterns collectors obsess over. Some examples show dramatic doubling on the lettering, others reveal crisp mint state perfection, preserved for over 3 decades without a single scratch. A few strike variations are so rare that professional graders award them elite designations that multiply their value into the hundreds of thousands. And then, there are the legendary high-grade specimens. The ones so flawless they almost don't seem real. These are the coins that break auction records, the coins that spark bidding wars among collectors, investors, and even museums. These are the coins that transform an ordinary penny into a 6 or 7-figure asset. And here's the part most people never hear. The majority of these rare, high-value coins weren't found in private collections. They were found in circulation, lost, forgotten, waiting, which means every old jar of pennies, every inherited coin box, every plastic bag of change sitting in the back of a kitchen drawer could be hiding something that shifts the course of your financial life. That's why the people who take the time to learn, to examine, to understand what makes these coins special are the ones who win big. And often, they win quietly. Some collectors call the 1991 D penny the silent millionaire maker. It's a dramatic name, but fitting. Imagine holding a single coin so valuable it could wipe out debt, pay for a new home, or fund the retirement you've been dreaming about. Yet it's small enough to disappear under a refrigerator. Fate has a funny sense of humor, doesn't it? Now, here's where the story becomes even more compelling. As demand for rare pennies surges across the U.S., the market has shifted. Investors who once focused on silver and gold are diversifying into rare copper coins because of their explosive growth and lower entry points. Meanwhile, collectors who grew up with Lincoln pennies are driving nostalgia-driven bidding wars, especially for unique mint-state Denver coins. That emotional connection, that sense of history creates urgency. People don't just want these coins, they feel compelled to own them. And as more collectors wake up to this growing trend, the pressure builds. Fewer high-grade 1991 D pennies remain unclaimed, and each discovery sends shockwaves through the marketplace. Every auction becomes a cliffhanger. Will the next one hit $1 million? Will the next newly found coin shatter the previous record? And the question that keeps viewers glued to the hunt: will yours be the next one? This dramatic rise in value also exposes a painful truth that many people ignore until it's too late. For decades, ordinary Americans have unknowingly thrown away fortunes. Pennies tossed into donation jars, cash registers, parking meters. How many rare coins were lost just because someone didn't look? That small fear of missing out on something life-changing is what drives people to finally check their coins, to slow down, to pay attention. The regret of what might have been is powerful, but the excitement of what could still be discovered, even more powerful. Of course, money alone isn't the full story. There's something magnetic, almost poetic, about transforming what looks like a simple copper-plated coin into a symbol of opportunity. Think about it. A penny, America's lowest denomination, has the power to elevate someone's life in ways that feel almost unreal. It's a reminder that wealth isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. Sometimes it waits for the right person to recognize it. And that brings us to the most important part of this journey, what you can do right now to take advantage of this moment. Start with the pennies you already own. Search for the 1991 D mint mark. Look for signs of high grade, sharp details, brilliant luster. Examine for doubling, for clean surfaces, for anything that looks just a little too perfect. These small steps, done consistently, turn curiosity into mastery and mastery into wealth. And even if the first few coins aren't valuable, you're building an eye that can spot the hidden treasures others walk right past. But be warned, the window of opportunity is narrowing. Every day, more people learn about these rare pennies. Every day, more coins are being graded, cataloged, and locked away into private collections. The supply shrinks, the competition grows, and just like that, the stakes rise higher and higher. And here's the twist that surprises almost everyone. The people who profit the most from rare pennies aren't giant investors with deep pockets. They're individuals, people just like you, who decide to look closely at something everyone else ignores. They embody the real power of wealth building: awareness, patience, and a willingness to see value where others do not. So take a moment and picture this. You're holding a tiny, unassuming 1991 D penny between your fingers. At first glance, it looks like any other coin you've ever spent. But under the right light, with the right knowledge, you notice something different. The shine, the sharpness, the perfection. And suddenly, your heart races. Could it really be? Could this coin, the one you nearly tossed aside, be the one worth nearly $1 million? That moment, that breath, that possibility, is why people fall in love with coin collecting. It's not just about history or metal. It's about opportunity. And the thrill of discovering something extraordinary in the most ordinary place. As the value of the 1991 D penny continues to surge toward the $1 million mark, the only question that remains is a simple one. Will you be the person who takes action, who checks, who searches, who claims their hidden wealth? Or will you let the chance slip quietly away? Because somewhere, right now, someone is about to find a life-changing penny. And the next person could just as easily be you. Imagine waking up one morning, reaching into an old jar of loose change, and discovering that one tiny copper-colored penny, the same coin you've ignored for years, is now worth more than your house, your car, and maybe even your retirement fund combined. It sounds unbelievable, right? And yet, that's exactly what's happening with one of the most unexpected modern coins in U.S. history, the 2021 Denver Mint Lincoln penny, a coin that originally cost 1 cent to spend, now selling for as high as $221,000. Yes, 1 cent turning into 6 figures, and in some cases, potentially 7. But before you think this is just another coin story, stay with me, because what you're about to hear may completely change the way you look at the pennies sitting in your kitchen drawer. The story of the 2021 D Lincoln penny doesn't begin in luxury vaults or ancient treasure hoards. It begins with everyday people, people just like you, who held onto this coin without realizing they were holding the keys to financial freedom. And what's even more fascinating is that the most valuable examples didn't come from dusty collections or old estates. They came straight from pocket change.in 2021. The Denver Mint produced over 1 billion pennies. 1 billion sounds overwhelming, but here's the twist. Among this massive production run, an unbelievably small number were struck with microscopic flaws, ultra-high-grade details, or unusual die characteristics that turned them into modern rarities. This is where luck meets knowledge. This is where opportunity quietly waits for the few who know what to look for. And this is exactly where most people miss their chance. Now, here's what makes this penny so special. When a coin is minted, it's struck by dies that apply the design. Sometimes those dies begin to wear, crack, misalign, or shift. Sometimes the strike is unusually sharp and flawless. Sometimes the planchet, the blank disc the penny begins as, has impurities or distinct characteristics that make it unique. In 2021, Denver had several periods of extreme die stress, die doubling, and high-pressure striking issues. Most collectors ignored them at first. After all, it's a new penny. Who pays attention to new pennies? Well, the lucky ones did. The ones who turned 1 cent into over $200,000 did. But what if the viewer watching this right now, what if that lucky person is you? You'd be surprised how many Americans have these pennies without realizing their value. Some found them in coin rolls, others in tip jars, and some literally spotted them on the ground. Imagine walking past a small copper coin that could have paid off your debt. That's a scary thought, isn't it? That fear, that quiet fear of missing out on life-changing money, is exactly why understanding these coins matters. Now, let's follow the journey of how a simple 2021 D-penny climbed its way to six-figure status. It starts with condition. The highest value coins are graded at the very peak, MS68, MS69, and even the elusive MS70. These are coins with no scratches, no wear, no imperfections visible even under magnification. They look like they were struck moments ago. That's what makes them precious. Out of hundreds of millions, only a handful will ever survive in near-perfect form. When grading companies like PCGS or NGC label one of these pennies as MS69 or MS70, the collector world reacts instantly. Prices shoot into the hundreds of thousands because major investors know the truth. Rarity is the backbone of wealth in the coin market. When a coin is extremely rare, modern or not, the value can skyrocket without warning. And that's exactly what just happened. One near-perfect example recently sold for around $221,000. Another is estimated to reach even higher, possibly pushing into seven-figure territory if bidding momentum continues. A 1-cent coin worth more than a Lamborghini. Let that sink in for a moment. But there's more. Beyond condition, certain 2021 D-pennies feature doubling, known as double dies. When the letters on the coin appear doubled, especially in the word liberty, the date, or the phrases "In God We Trust" and "United States of America," collectors go wild. Why? Because die doubling is extremely scarce on modern pennies and usually signals the birth of a major variety. And those varieties can become the next million-dollar milestones. Then there are off-center strikes, die cracks, rim errors, and even rare planchet anomalies. Think of these like nature carving signatures into a coin. No two are identical, and collectors love that. It's like owning a piece of art sculpted by accident. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but how do I know if I have the right one? Should I just start digging through every penny in the house? And the answer is simple: yes. Yes, you absolutely should. Because the people who grabbed these coins early weren't experts. They were curious. They looked. They checked. They paid attention when others didn't. That's how wealth works. It rewards action, not hesitation. But before we get to exactly how you can identify a valuable 2021 D-penny of your own, let's take a step back. Why are modern pennies suddenly rising in value at all? For decades, collectors believed that newer coins wouldn't become valuable in their lifetime. But that mindset is rapidly changing. The combination of record-high demand, shrinking mint quality control, and major investor interest has transformed modern pennies into a new frontier. Those who catch these trends early, the 30 to 65-year-olds who understand opportunity and appreciate wealth building, are the ones who profit the most. It's like catching a stock before it explodes. Except this investment is hiding right in your pocket. Right now, collectors are scrambling to secure high-grade examples before the supply dries up. Once they're in private collections, they may never return to the market. And that's where the urgency comes in. Because when the last few high-grade coins are locked away, the value of the remaining ones will only climb. Let's get specific so you know exactly what to look for. If you have a 2021 penny with a D-mint mark under the date, inspect it carefully under a bright light. Check Lincoln's bow tie, the lettering, and the edges for doubling or distortion. Look for unusually sharp details. Coins with deep, crisp designs often earn higher grades. Check the surfaces for a flawless, glossy finish without nicks or scratches. And if it looks perfect to the naked eye, that's when you send it for grading. But here's the cliffhanger. The rarest 2021 D-penny known to exist has not yet been discovered. The MS70 population is still incredibly tiny. The highest graded double die varieties remain unconfirmed at scale. The next record-breaking coin could be sitting in someone's purse right now, waiting to be recognized. What if that someone is you? What if your next step after this video leads you directly to a six-figure or even seven-figure discovery? And don't underestimate the power of timing. The coin market moves fast, and high-value trends often explode when people least expect them. That's why serious collectors are checking their modern pennies before the surge hits. Because opportunities like this don't stay quiet forever. Now, you may be asking yourself, why haven't I heard about this sooner? Why isn't everyone talking about the 2021 D penny? And the truth is simple. Most people don't believe small things can hold big value. But the wealthy know better. They know that fortunes are built by recognizing hidden opportunities long before the rest of the world catches up. Whether it's real estate, crypto, stocks, art, or even a penny, wealth favors awareness, let's be honest. How many times have we all tossed pennies aside, thinking they're worthless? How many times have we rolled them up without checking? Isn't it ironic that the smallest coin in American currency might now be the biggest chance at life-changing profit? So here's your moment. After this video, go check your coins. Search the jars. Open the drawers. Revisit the old piggy banks. Because while others laugh at the idea of a valuable penny, you're stepping into a truth they haven't realized yet. Wealth hides in places most people overlook. And as you look through your 2021 D pennies, remember one last thing. Somewhere out there, a coin worth far more than $221,000 is waiting to be found. It's waiting for the person bold enough to search for it. It's waiting for someone who believes they deserve financial freedom, someone who's ready to elevate their life, someone who refuses to miss their moment. Imagine waking up tomorrow, walking into a dusty drawer, and discovering a simple copper-colored penny that could change your entire financial future. Sounds impossible, right? But every day, ordinary Americans are realizing that the smallest coin in their pocket could be worth more than a luxury car, a down payment on a dream home, or even a lifetime of financial security. Today, we're diving into one of the most surprising and overlooked treasures in modern numismatics, the 2006 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that seems common, almost invisible, until it isn't. And for a select few, it has reached values as high as $206,000, with experts projecting even higher future potential. So if you've ever wondered whether your change jar is hiding a miracle, stay with me, because what you're about to learn could rewrite your story. It all starts in a year most people barely remember as coin-worthy. 2006. Most of us were busy with our lives, paying bills, raising families, chasing careers. Pennies? They were just something you tossed into a cup holder and forgot. But quietly, at the Denver Mint, something unusual was happening. Among the millions of routine cents produced, a small fraction emerged with striking anomalies, errors, die variations, and minting defects that slipped through undetected. At the time, nobody noticed. But collectors today are hunting those exact coins with an intensity that rivals treasure seekers and investors looking for the next big windfall. It's strange, isn't it? A penny everyone ignored suddenly becoming a status symbol in the world of rare coins. But that's how wealth often works. It hides in plain sight, waiting for the person with the courage to look closer. And here's where fear enters the picture, the fear of missing out on something extraordinary. Because for every rare penny that's discovered, countless others sit unseen, unrecognized, tossed into coin machines or spent at gas stations for a pack of gum. Imagine being the person who unknowingly gives away a $100,000 coin for a lottery ticket. Painful, right? Collectors have identified several extraordinary features in the 2006 D penny that can launch its value into astonishing territory. Sharp double dies, dramatic off-center strikes, unusually high-grade specimens, and coins struck on the wrong planchets. These are the golden tickets. But the highest sales, climbing into the six-figure range, come from the top condition coins almost untouched by time. These are the ones graded by professional services at levels so pristine they're practically time capsules. A perfect storm of rarity, condition, demand, and collector obsession. And here's the part most people don't realize. The market is hungry right now. Desperately hungry. With economic uncertainty, rising precious metal values, and investors searching for high-growth alternatives, coins like the 2006 D penny have surged in demand. You're not just selling a coin. You're offering a piece of American history, a minted artifact that carries the weight of nostalgia and the thrill of rarity. Buyers feel the emotional pull and they pay accordingly. $206,000 for a penny. Let that sink in for a moment. But here's where excitement kicks in. Anyone watching this video could be holding one. That's the beauty of modern rare coins. They don't just come from estate collections or auction houses. They come from aprons, glove compartments, childhood piggy banks, and jars that haven't been touched since 2006. You don't need to be an expert to start. You don't need fancy equipment, a museum vault, or a background in numismatics. All you need is curiosity and maybe a pair of reading glasses if you're like most of us past 30. Still, before you start tearing your house apart looking for old pennies, there's something important to consider. Wealth doesn't come to those who rush blindly. It comes to those who prepare, pay attention, and act with intention. The people making the highest profits from coins like this aren't necessarily the ones who found them. They're the ones who recognize their value in time. That's the real secret. Recognition, awareness, and yes, a little bit of courage. You might be wondering, why would a 2006 penny be worth so much when millions were made? It's the same reason a misprinted baseball card or a limited edition comic becomes valuable. Rarity layered on top of demand. Most 2006 pennies have lived rough lives. Scratched in pockets, dropped on concrete, washed in machines, scraped in jars. Only a handful survived in exceptional condition, and even fewer contain dramatic minting errors. Those survivors now exist in a league of their own. A league where collectors compete fiercely, driving prices higher with every auction. And higher still when those coins become legends. There's a subtle thrill in all of this, isn't there? The possibility that your financial turning point isn't in a bank or investment account, but in a tiny copper coin sitting quietly in your house. Don't laugh, stranger things have happened. I mean, who expected Beanie Babies to become valuable? On second thought, maybe let's not talk about that one. But rare coins? Completely different story. Their value is built on scarcity, history, desirability, and expert authentication. That's why this market keeps growing while others fluctuate. Now, imagine you find one of these rare 2006 pennies. What happens next? This is where people often make their biggest mistake. They rush to sell without understanding the process. Selling too fast, too cheap, or to the wrong buyer can cost you tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. You want the right grading service, the right auction environment, and the right timing. The right timing, by the way, can be everything. Markets rise and fall, and those who pay attention can capture the highest peaks. If you're feeling a little nervous, that's good. Fear has a purpose here. It reminds you not to throw away something you haven't fully understood. But pair that fear with excitement, and you'll discover something powerful. A sense of urgency. A reason to take action today, not someday. Because think about it. Every day that passes is another day someone else finds the rare coins you could have sold first. Let's create a cliffhanger for your own life. Right now, as you're listening, somewhere in your home, there could be a coin waiting for discovery, waiting to rewrite your financial story. But will you find it? Or will it sit there for another year, another decade, until someone else picks it up and reaps the reward? The path you take from here determines the outcome. And that sense of possibility, that electric feeling that maybe, just maybe, wealth is closer than you think, is exactly what keeps collectors, sellers, and investors searching. The 2006 Lincoln penny is more than a piece of metal. It's a symbol of hidden opportunity. It proves that wealth doesn't always come from giant, obvious things. Sometimes it arrives quietly, wrapped in copper, unnoticed until the moment someone looks closer. And when that moment happens, everything changes. So before this video ends, here's your next step. Check your pennies. Check old jars, old drawers, old wallets, and boxes you haven't opened in years. Examine every 2006 penny you find. Look for crisp details, doubling on the letters, unusual thickness, off-center strikes, missing elements, or anything that feels off. If you're unsure, don't guess. Consult a grading professional. The right evaluation can turn a simple discovery into a life-changing asset. Welcome back. Before you scroll away, picture this. A coin so ordinary that millions of people touched it, spent it, and ignored it. Yet today, the right one could sell for as much as $996,000, and in rare cases, climb into the millions. Now imagine that this coin might be sitting in your home, hidden in an old jar, inside a dresser drawer, or mixed in with loose change you haven't checked in decades. The 1996 Lincoln penny. A coin so familiar, yet so misunderstood, and potentially one of the most lucrative pennies of the modern era. And yes, I know what you might be thinking. A penny? Worth nearly $1 million? If only taxes worked the same way, right? But stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand why this humble penny can reach extraordinary values, but you'll also know exactly what signs, errors, and conditions can turn a 1-cent coin into a retirement-level jackpot. And trust me, you don't want to miss what I reveal in the final moments. Let's begin with a powerful truth. Wealth often hides in plain sight. Most people overlook opportunities not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack awareness. The 1996 D. Lincoln penny is the perfect example of this. Over 6.4 billion of them were minted in Denver, which makes the idea of $1 million penny sound impossible, until you learn how minting anomalies, rare die varieties, and untouched condition can transform an everyday object into something investors and collectors fight over. And this is where the story gets interesting. Every valuable 1996 D penny begins its journey the same way, in a high-speed production environment where tiny deviations can create astonishing treasures. A microscopic doubling of the date, an off-center strike, a rotated die, a misaligned mint mark. These are the imperfections that perfectionists with deep pockets hunt for. But the real question is, do you have one of these rare survivors? Before we go deeper, let me reset your focus with a simple question. If someone handed you a penny right now and told you it could be worth $996,000, would you laugh? Or inspect it like it was the key to your future? Exactly. Because one of the most dangerous things anyone can do in their financial life is underestimate the small things. Small habits, small investments, and yes, small coins. Some of the most valuable 1996 D pennies ever discovered share one trait. They were never meant to be valuable at all. They escaped the mint quietly, unnoticed. Some were tucked away unintentionally by people saving pocket change. Others ended up in collections that were forgotten, only to be rediscovered years later when families sorted through estates. And that leads us to one of the most emotional truths in the coin world. Fortunes are often lost because people don't know what they have. Imagine someone tossing a rare 1996 D double-die penny into a vending machine because they didn't feel like carrying extra coins. Imagine a priceless off-center strike being spent on gum. It's terrifying, isn't it? And yet it happens all the time. The fear of missing out becomes very real when we realize the opportunity could be sitting in our own homes right now. But this is where things shift. Because once word began circulating that certain 1996 D pennies were hitting auction prices in the hundreds of thousands, and topping out at nearly $1 million, collectors, investors, and everyday Americans started re-examining their spare change. And the more eyes turned toward these coins, the more demand surged, pushing prices even higher and driving a new wave of urgency. Now the excitement truly begins. What makes your 1996 D penny special? Look for the sharpness of Lincoln's profile, the clarity of the lettering, and the reflective, almost mirror-like finish on pieces that were barely touched. Some were struck on experimental planchets, some on pre-blank stock from previous years, and some carry doubling effects caused by slight shifts in the dies during production. Each of these factors can multiply the coin's value 10-fold, 20-fold, even 1,000-fold. And here comes the cliffhanger you've been waiting for. One of the most valuable 1996 D pennies ever sold didn't look extraordinary to the naked eye. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't sitting in a collector's showcase. It was found by someone who didn't even consider themselves a coin hobbyist. I'll tell you exactly what made that coin so valuable in a moment. But first, let's talk about why you may be holding the next one. Condition is king. A coin graded at the highest level, mint state 69 or 70, is extremely rare for a 1996 D penny. Add in an error or variety, and you have a coin so coveted that collectors will bid against each other like it's an Olympic sport. And yes, bidding wars get intense. Thousands turning into hundreds of thousands climbing towards seven-figure territory. All for a penny. But here's where people go wrong. They assume only shiny coins are valuable. Not true. Some of the highest price sales came from coins with errors so dramatic or so unique that their surface quality became secondary. A dramatic off-center strike, for example, can turn an average coin into a museum piece. A perfectly centered double die can turn it into a collector's dream. And a rare transitional metal composition error? That's when the price crosses from incredible into unbelievable. Remember the coin I mentioned earlier? The one that didn't look special? It sold for a life-changing price because it carried a subtle die rotation combined with pristine surfaces that almost never survive circulation. The kind of thing most people would overlook. The kind of detail you only spot when you understand what to look for. And this brings us to the real heart of the story, the opportunity in front of you. You are watching this because you're searching for more wealth, more freedom, more possibility. Millions of Americans keep jars of pennies without realizing some of them could dramatically change their lives. And the 1996 D penny is one of the most powerful examples of modern hidden value. There is urgency here. The market is hot, competition is rising, and high-grade examples are being snapped up quickly by investors who understand their long-term potential. The longer these coins stay in private hands unexamined, the fewer chances the average person has to find one before the major collectors dominate the entire supply. This is a race, and most people don't even know they're in it. So now the question becomes, what will you do next? Will you check your old jars, your boxes, your drawers, or the little stash of coins you haven't touched in years? Or will you let the possibility of $1 million penny pass you by? Before we wrap up, here's your final cliffhanger. There is one specific error on the 1996 D penny that experts believe could break every price record if a perfect example appears. A combination of doubling, misalignment, and early die state that has only been partially documented but never found in flawless condition. Collectors are waiting, dealers are watching, and someone somewhere might already have this coin without knowing it. And that someone might be you. So check your coins. Protect them. Get them evaluated. Because opportunities like this don't last forever, and wealth doesn't wait for anyone. If you want more videos that guide you toward hidden value, rare coins, and the life-changing treasures people overlook every day, make sure you stay connected. And until next time, keep searching. Your fortune might be only 1 penny away. Imagine waking up one morning, reaching into an old coffee jar filled with pennies, and discovering that one tiny coin in your hand is worth more than a luxury house. Sounds impossible, right? But the truth is, an ordinary-looking USA 1984 D Lincoln penny has shocked collectors recently by selling for as high as $984,000. And yes, some rare varieties tied to this year have even pushed into the millions. The question is simple. Could one be sitting quietly in your home right now? Welcome back. Today we're diving into a story of value hiding in plain sight. A story about wealth that most people overlook every single day. If you're someone between the ages of 30 and 65, someone who grew up handling pennies without ever imagining they could open the door to a wealthier lifestyle, prepare to see the humble 1-cent coin in a completely new light. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, why the 1984 D penny is so valuable, and how you might be one lucky find away from changing your financial story. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end, because the detail that separates a $100 penny from $1 million penny is so easy to miss. It sends shivers down collectors' spines. It all began with a discovery that no one expected. A coin that had passed through gas stations, pockets, glove compartments, and maybe even a laundromat suddenly emerged with a price tag close to $1 million. At first, people assumed it was a fluke, a one-time event. But then more examples surfaced and a hidden truth came to light. The 1984 D penny isn't rare because of how many were made. It's rare because of the unusual surprises that slipped through the minting process. Think about that. Millions of these coins were struck at the Denver Mint in 1984. Millions. Yet a tiny handful contain errors so dramatic and so eye-catching that they've become legendary. If you've ever wondered how tiny mistakes can turn small coins into massive fortunes, this is where the story begins. For this coin, collectors hunt for distinct signs. Doubling on Lincoln's ear, distorted lettering, off-center strikes, extreme die cracks, and in some cases, combinations of multiple errors on the same coin. These aren't just errors. They are shocks frozen in copper. They are mistakes that should have never escaped the mint, but did. And as collectors say, whenever a mistake slips through the system, value slips in. Now, imagine holding one of these extraordinary pennies in your hand. Imagine discovering that what you assumed was worth 1 cent is actually worth a year's salary, or even a lifetime of comfort. That surge of excitement is exactly why demand for these coins has skyrocketed. When bidders enter an auction for a high-grade 1984 D penny, things get heated. The urgency rises. The fear of missing out pushes the price higher and higher. And suddenly, that little copper coin becomes the center of a financial battlefield. But before you rush to empty every penny jar in your house, although let's be honest, you probably will, let's rewind for a moment. Because there's a bigger story hidden beneath the shine of the 1984 D penny. A story about opportunity. A story about how wealth can hide in the most unexpected places. And a story about how everyday people like you are finding ways to unlock that wealth. Maybe you're someone who has always wondered if life could be easier, if retirement could feel lighter, if your savings could stretch further. What if the answer isn't in working harder, but in discovering value where others never look? What if financial transformation begins with something as small as a copper coin? This is where things get interesting, because despite its value, the 1984 D penny is not a coin that screams rarity. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shine with silver or gold. It's humble, ordinary, almost invisible. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. Life's biggest opportunities rarely announce themselves loudly. Sometimes, they sit quietly at the bottom of a drawer, waiting for the right person to recognize them. Collectors understand this. Investors understand this. And once you understand it too, you'll never look at loose change the same way again. But before you start checking your coins under a magnifying glass, don't worry, you will soon. Let's talk about condition. Because condition isn't just important, it's everything. A regular 1984 D penny with light wear might sell for a few dollars. A clean example might reach a few hundred. But the ones commanding hundreds of thousands or even approaching the $1,000,000 level are the coins preserved with extraordinary detail, often graded by professional services. This leads to an unsettling question. One that keeps collectors awake at night. How many perfect or near-perfect 1984 D pennies are still out there? How many are buried in old jars, inside dusty desk drawers, or tucked away in childhood coin collections? How many are sitting in homes just like yours? The fear of missing that life-changing discovery is real. So is the excitement of imagining that you could be the next person to uncover one. And as more people start hunting for these coins, the urgency grows. Supply is shrinking. Demand is rising. And when demand rises in the coin world, prices explode. Now let's talk about the $1,000,000 question, literally. Why has the 1984 D penny reached values of $984,000 and beyond? It's a combination of rarity, condition, emotional demand, and the undeniable thrill of owning a once-in-a-lifetime error. But it's also about timing. The collectible coin market is surging. Baby boomers are passing down collections. New investors are entering the market. People are searching for tangible assets, things with real historical weight. And what has more historical weight than a coin that's passed through the hands of everyday Americans since the 1980s? A coin that represents a moment in time, an error in creation, and an opportunity so rare it almost feels unreal. But here's where I want you to pay close attention, because this next part is something most people overlook. The value of the 1984 D penny is climbing not just because of what it is, but because of what it symbolizes. It symbolizes transformation. It symbolizes unexpected wealth. It symbolizes the idea that your life can change in an instant. And isn't that what so many of us want? A moment of breakthrough, a chance to breathe easier, a way to step into a wealthier, freer lifestyle without needing to risk everything. If you knew that a simple coin could give you that chance, wouldn't you want to look for it? Now here's the fun part. You don't need a metal detector. You don't need special equipment. You don't need rare knowledge passed down from ancient coin masters. Although that does sound kind of impressive, doesn't it? All you need is awareness. The awareness that value can hide anywhere, even in one of the most common coins in American history. And here's the twist you've been waiting for. The most valuable 1984 D pennies ever discovered were found not in professional collections, not in elite auctions, not in private estates, but in ordinary circulation. Someone used one to buy a soda. Someone else got one back in change at a grocery store. These coins lived normal lives, right up until the moment someone finally noticed them. That should give you chills. Because if million-dollar coins can come from ordinary pockets, then one could absolutely be waiting for you. As we near the end of this story, the real question becomes, what will you do with this information? Will you ignore it and assume pennies are worthless? Or will you begin looking, really looking, through your collection, your coin jar, your old drawers, and maybe even your parents' or grandparents' pennies? Every great discovery starts with a decision, and maybe your decision begins today. Before this video ends, here's one last cliffhanger for you. The 1984 D penny is not the only modern coin with million-dollar potential. There are others, coins from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even 2000s, that are quietly increasing in value as the market evolves. Some of these coins you've held 100 times without ever knowing what they could be worth. But that is a story for another day. For now, take this moment as your invitation. Wealth doesn't always come from big opportunities. Sometimes it comes from the smallest ones. And who knows, the next time you open that jar of pennies, you might just be holding a fortune.